In business, we're often thinking and working on strategies that are going to help us get the results now. But have you thought about what your exit strategy would look like? In a perfect world, when would you want to exit your business? What ideal value would you like to achieve in terms of sale price? In this amazing episode with business coach Todd Rodden, we talk about all the elements of preparing your business for exit. Todd, why business coaching for you?
You know, Michelle, it was something, I had a long career more in a corporate setting, 30 plus years, but I always had kind of this sense that I was going to retire at a fairly young age and go do this next chapter of life. And I look back on my varied corporate career, there was two things I really loved. I loved going in and driving improvements, lots of fixes. I did a lot of business process improvement. I was a lean Six Sigma master black belt, so a lot of specialization there. But I also loved coaching and developing other leaders. So kind of bring those together of developing leaders, business improvement, coaching just seemed to be a natural fit. So I very fortunate I had the opportunity in 2021 to finally pull that lever and leave that corporate setting. And then I did my due diligence looking at what the different options were from a coaching perspective. And I came across Actioncoach and I fell in love with the model and the team.
And when business owners, first start working with you, what's the challenge that they've got? Like, how do you help them?
Yeah, you see it come in several different angles, right? You always have the business owner who's kind of plateaued and stuck. Also, I've had several come with, they're starting to think about the exit time of their business. They're maybe 5 years from retiring, haven't put the thought into succession or getting the business really ready if a sale is something that's on the horizon. So really getting them to step back and think differently about the business, their team, how they're going to market, how they're leading the business or not leading the business sometimes, and getting them to move forward from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't often as business owners think with the end in mind. Why is that important, the end in mind?
Yeah, I often remind folks, you are going to exit your business one way or the other someday, right? And so are you prepared for that, right? And I think it's so common, especially if someone's a founder in their business, they've created it. There's so much of their personal identity is wrapped around the business. And they're just, they're always looking at that next hill to climb and they're just keep focused on that and just never taking the time to really step back and realizing, oh, wait a minute, I am going to exit this business one way or the other. And is it going to be the way I want it to be? And is the business going to be in a position for that to really work successfully and to continue on?
And sometimes it's actually not by choice. Sometimes it can be some sort of, whether it's a health issue or some sort of crisis where you are forced to step away. So when you start to think about what would that look like, what are the kind of the first steps for business owners to start thinking about what that exit would look like?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's the personal side and then there's the business side, right? So they need to have something that they really dream about on the other side of the business. I find for many, they haven't really thought what's going to be on the other side of this, right? What are their dreams post-retirement or post-sale? And how do those align with their partner, right, or family, and getting that personal side there? And sometimes it's some work to get folks really to draw out and think forward through that future. Sometimes it's uncomfortable too, right? Then there's the kind of more physical side within the business, and the common component, especially with owners, of being so caught up in the day-to-day, the business being so wrapped around them, of really getting them to unwind that. Of building up the team, freeing up their time to work more on the strategy and the bigger elements of the business, and really building that stronger, more robust team that can take the business when they're not there.
And Todd, is that harder for business owners that have been wrapped up in the business for longer to think kind of what's next and let go?
Yeah. Most definitely is. I'm laughing because I'm thinking of a current client of mine, founder, business been around 25 years, very successful engineering firm, starting to realize though that end point is probably coming and hasn't really, until we started to work together, taken that time to what are his dreams in that next step, and allowing himself to do that. I've actually had to encourage him to reach out to his wife to go through that process, and I've followed up with his wife to make sure he's actually made the time to do that, to figure out, hey, what's on, what are their future dreams, and not just his, but that they're aligned together. And they've got to have something that, he had this dream many years ago to build this business, and he's been very successful in that. But what's that next chapter?
And what was it for him? Do you remember?
For him, he wants to travel a lot more. He has some grandkids coming, so he's realizing there's going to be some of those wants and desires. His kids, a couple have moved out of the area, so he's going to have to travel to do that.
That'll do it.
And also, he's actually very passionate about the game of tennis. So he wants to travel and go to see. He did see Wimbledon, but now he wants to go to see the Australian Open, all right, and also go to the French Open as well, but also to do other activities and events like that.
Yeah, amazing. So, and then what's next? So it's kind of getting them to think about that. What would life look like after the business? And then what's the next step that they take?
Yeah. So in parallel, now we work on the business to get the business ready for his exit. So building up the management team, right? So, taking some of the duties he's historically carried and developing the leaders underneath him and the processes. There's probably some skill gaps there he's going to have to address on the team as well as we move forward with that. And then on the personal side, you can't just wait until, I'm going to retire and do all those things. You need to set some intermediate goals of some of those dream components as well. Hey, how can I maybe this year accomplish one of those or go have one of those experiences? So you're starting to kind of feather those things into your life now, not waiting 5 years down the road and, I'm going to do them all then, because the reality is you probably won't. And also getting some of those experiences now will motivate you even more, to get there.
So you mentioned 5 years. That was going to be one of my questions. Like, what is the ideal time in terms of planning for that exit? Is it 5 years from now? And how long does that usually take? And you could speed it up, I guess, but is that ideal?
Yeah. It will. I hate to use the answer. It will vary, but that's the other key component. Is like even early on in your business, you should start to think about that exit. Don't wait, 20 years and you're close to the retirement age piece, because that's why it's so important to be building your team even early on in the days of your business. Right, you're closer and closer, because you never know. While you may have that dream retirement date out there, there could be something unfortunate happen, right, that would accelerate that. So that's why it's important. Get those things in order and start planning for that. Don't wait for the last 5 years. Start thinking about that in the first 5 years as well with the business.
Yeah, so at Actioncoach, we help businesses, create a profitable enterprise that can work without them. That is kind of a key element to setting your business up for sale or succession, isn't it? To actually be able to, that the business isn't you, because when you do step out, there is no business.
Right.
Have you seen some examples of that?
Multiple examples across many different industries where, again, it's the business is so still wrapped around that single owner. Maybe that they own all the client relationships, or they're the point person for most of the key strategic sales. That you can't just extract that person out. I just had a conversation today with a gentleman who's an appliance repair shop, and he's like, I can't go away for more than a week. I know I can't. So he's my next client. Is what that's going to be there, because our model is perfectly built to make that happen, right? With our 6-step methodology to get them to that path to freedom.
It is it is a shift in mindset, isn't it? Because you get some business owners that would love to just not be involved in the day-to-day business, and then you get some that just their identity is so wrapped up in the business, and no one can do it better than me. What do you find is kind of the most common? They don't want to be in it, or they do?
No, I find more they still want to be in it. They have a hard time, even when they build a pretty strong team underneath them, they still struggle with letting go right? And again, I think a lot of that still ties back to that identity of them and their business to get there. So I wish I had more clients that were on the other side of that, who are already comfortable letting go and thinking about um, you know, the next opportunity, the next challenge for them. But more than that, it's still getting those last remnants of control that they have in the business.
And so what were the steps, for that example that you just shared with your client? They had the vision and then they had to start taking steps on letting go and stepping out of the business. What was that process look like?
Yeah, so that very much ties into kind of the alignment process that we use within Actioncoach, getting them very clear of what those dreams are, and then now, okay, let's put pen to paper around those of what are the specific actions that you're going to do, when, and then keeping them accountable to doing that. So, like in this example, that action plan for this gentleman, he's going to review it with his wife, and so he's not only committed with me, but he's accountable with his wife to make sure he's sticking to the plan.
So what were some of the action items? Like, what's his role in the business? Is he kind of managing clients?
Yeah, for him, the big accounts all kind of flow through him, right? So if you're an outsider looking at the business, you say, well, that's tremendous risk if he were to go away. And they have a great reputation, and that's all wonderful, but it's still too pinpointed around him. So we're within the business working on some strategies within his sales team, building out more of an account management type approach, and then over time starting to feather those relationships over into other individuals. At the same time, there's some training and development we're likely going to need to do with some of those other folks as well. They haven't done that, right? And manage those big accounts. So it's getting that growth. And candidly, sometimes we have to do an assessment, are those folks really capable of handling that long term as well? So those are some of the things we're looking at, and that's natural to make those considerations. In this case, he's built a good team underneath him, capable of being developed and doing more.
Yeah, great. Well, that's kind of one of the main things, isn't it? You've got to have the people in place to be able to take over the reins. And so when it comes to valuing a business, do you ever sort of go for someone that kind of wants to look at an exit strategy? Do you value it? Do you get somebody in to value the business as to what it is now? Do you start to talk about, okay, what's the multiple, or what do they want to sell the business for? Or is it, because ultimately that's the best outcome. You want to be able to sell the business. You see so many business owners just walking away from their business, or they're so done that they'll take anything for it because they just want to get out. I mean, it's sad, but it's so preventable.
That's where I think it's key for us as coaches. We can provide a lot of value by connecting our clients with some other expertise that's out there. So that might be having a great relationship with a business broker who can give them, insights of, hey, this is the potential valuation, as well as, accounting and investment firms that would also come in and look at the business as well. So having those trusted partners, that's a huge value add for the clients, right? And also for us, those can also be great referral opportunities later on for us. They're their clients as well. So it's a win-win strategic partnership there.
So for a business, that's wanting to kind of value where their business, so obviously step one was to dream and kind of vision the life, without the business. And part of that would be what would I love to get for my business in terms of sale? What's the process of then valuing the business where it is, and then is part of the plan for the next 5 years making sure that that's on track in terms of EBITDA? What's the multiple that they want to get for the business? Walk me through that process.
Yeah, so essentially, once you've done that valuation and you said, well, hey, maybe where you're at today, that's not the target value you want to be able to exit and live the lifestyle you would prefer. So then now you've got a target of where you want to get to. whether it's 3-4 years down the road, right? Now you put in the action plan around what it's going to take to get there. So that's the, revenue growth, also looking within the business of the drivers of profitability, so expenses and that, but also honest look at pricing. And you typically find a lot of opportunities in pricing in many businesses as well. So you start to look at those different levers to get, the business where it's going to be that, instead of it at 4x, it's going to be valued at 6x, which can be millions of dollars for some businesses. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And have you got any, stories of any businesses that you have helped kind of exit and sell?
Yeah, I think one that stands out to me is a power sports dealer here in the area. So it was a gentleman I came across, actually came from a business broker referral. He was interested in selling. Fortunately, the business broker had some tough news for him. Right now, where your business is at, it's not really sellable, just from a profitability standpoint. So, we were about ready to start, and this is a little bit of a unique beginning. We were about ready to start, and then he called me right before we were going to start working and said, I've had some stuff come up. I'm going to have to hold off. And then he went radio silent for me for a while. And so then about 4 or 5 months later, I actually got reconnected with him. And James, how are you doing? And unfortunately, things had gone from bad to worse. So he had taken some advice from some of his employees. He'd made some additional investments, taken on more debt, had cut his marketing budget to help pay for what he was doing. So now he kind of had the business in what I refer to as a death spiral, right? He was losing sales, but now he had more expenses and debt. So actually, we finally kicked off, and we had to really roll up our sleeves there and look at the business. And I was honestly worried about his health at the start of the engagement, just where he was from a stress perspective. Quickly looked at where he was spending his time. We looked at some opportunities of how he was paying down debt to save him some money there. But very importantly, pricing was huge for James. And I find this a lot with folks. What I refer to as the 4 M's of pricing. There's where you are in the market. There's some understanding of the math. There's a lot around mindset. And then movement, getting movement forward. We covered all those with him, of an honest assessment of where he was in the market with his pricing, also compared to the level of quality service. And when we did a comparison, I have this tool we use to compare your quality versus your pricing. What he identified was he was like one of the absolute lowest price providers, but one of the highest quality providers. Well, hello, that's opportunity, right? So, but he had a lot of mindset challenges or fears of raising pricing. So we went through how much money he was losing by not being at market or above, especially for a high quality provider, and then getting him to move forward on that. Then we started to really unlock, profits in the business while freeing him up as well. And he had other challenges to eventually address within his team of building that out. Last summer, James actually sold the business, right? Got his debt free, had another lump sum of money to go with it. And he is spending time now with his, he had 2 grandkids born during our time of coaching. And now he's spending more time with that. Some challenging decisions to make around pricing and team. We got him to the other side of that.
That's amazing, Todd. Congratulations to you and Jason. So when did you start work? Like, how long was this process? How long did that take?
Yeah, we worked very quickly with James, just given where he was at. But that was a little bit over a year of really to get that transformation in place. That's probably faster than what I anticipated. But he was very dedicated to getting there, and we made up a lot of ground quickly with some of the pricing moves. Not everybody has that much opportunity, but most do, what I find. When we go in and said, really do that candid, hard look at where they are priced in the marketplace.
Hats off to James, because there was obviously something that, you mentioned business brokers. So, how many times they would get business owners coming to them so desperate, wanting to sell because they're in trouble. And, he obviously second time round, realized and you were able to show him there was a pathway forward that was going to help him get that outcome that he wanted and get him out of that kind of hot water. Many business owners just don't get to that point. So you mentioned mindset. What was it that was in 12 months, you were able to help him get out of hot water and actually make a profit and walk away with money in the bank. That's an amazing achievement. What was that kind of aha moment, we call it BFOs, blinding flash of the obvious, that kind of helped him make that decision to start working with you?
Yeah. Around to make those pricing, in particular those pricing changes, it was emotional, right? Because there was just fear of, well, if I raise my prices, my customers are gonna, I'm gonna lose all kinds of customers, right? And that's where you actually do some math with them. You realize, well, hey, based on where you are from a margin perspective, if you discount 10%, you could have to do, 33% more, jobs to offset that discounting. That's how much that's really just destroying your bottom line. But also this very simple 4-block approach I use with him and some others, where we map out their quality of service compared to where they are in the marketplace. And especially if you can go in the market and do some mystery shopping and some comparison shopping of what other competitors are charging. And when we did that and laid it out, and it was just, the people who he was comparing himself to from a level of quality, because he was more of a higher end motorcycle shop. That's who his clientele was. And he was just so much lower. He was leaving so much money on the table and realizing the quality of service he had. Your clients are not going to leave you. They love you. They love the personal touch you're providing. You either want all the stress of the debt, or you're going to manage through the stress of making these changes and get to the other side and be profitable. And so, you start with smaller movements. That's part of the other. And then my 4 M's is movement. Don't shock the world, but you start to make gradual movements. And I encourage all my clients, you try to always be testing new pricing strategies. Don't get static. Your items, your supplies, your employees, they cost more every year, a little bit than they did the last year. So you have to be moving forward in some way, shape, or form there. So always be testing it. And it's, it also could be how you're bundling offerings and things like that. So it's more to it than just your flat pricing.
Yeah, it's interesting. 2 things there. One is, when it comes to being often the cheapest on the market, or there's a perception that your clientele or potential customers have is that you're not as good. And so your mindset around money isn't necessarily what they're valuing in terms of quality. And so just a shift in thinking about your product and service and price point can make such a big difference in terms of attracting more customers as well.
Yeah, when you lay them out and you show them versus other players in the market, and you say, okay, well, you're 20% below average in terms of what you're charging. Are you below average in your quality of service? And no one thinks they're below average. So I try to use with them external measures. So maybe it's their Google ratings or other rating systems to see, well, this is where, because it doesn't really matter what you think, it's what the market thinks your level of quality and service is.
Yeah, there was a event that I went to many years ago. It was a sales training event. There was like 800 people in the room, and the presenter asked people to put their hand up he picked someone out of the audience and said, what do you do? And she said, I'm a marketing consultant. And he said, how much do you charge? And she said, $50 an hour. And he said, everybody else put your hand up if you're in marketing. And, 7 other hands went up in the room. And he asked all of them to stand up and, what's your pricing? What do you charge? And it ranged from the $50 right up to sort of $500 an hour. And he asked each of them, why do you price yourself at that point? And then he asked the audience, who would you want to work with if you needed marketing assistance? And everyone said the $500 an hour marketing person. Yeah, it was a really kind of powerful shift in terms of, what we think about our pricing of our, products and services. The other thing I want to mention is that you talked about, really looking at the numbers in your business, and when it comes to sort of start working with a client and valuing where they're at, there's can often be some embarrassment, shame. People put it off, right? Business owners are like, I'm all good. I don't want to look at my numbers because they know they're not going to love what they find. So,
Yeah. And Michelle, that's when they actually have their numbers, right?
so before that, they're in denial.
Ignorance is bliss. It doesn't really work like that. But,
Who made that up? Who made that up?
So it's not uncommon for some, especially some of the smaller clients that there's just some time to get their accounting up to snuff, their books up to snuff, and then there's the other component beyond the financial accounting, the key processes in their business. Are they tracking leads, conversion rates? Some of those key things that we know we're likely to focus on, and getting those structures, those tools, those systems in place, because otherwise it's kind of guesswork, or they're going at this kind of blind. Too much gut. Yeah, too much gut feel.
Yeah. So, what's the best reaction you've had, when you've actually sat down and done some numbers, or worst, when you've done some numbers with the business owner?
One that comes to mind is in our early discussions was when we talked about, their sales process and conversion rate. They were, convinced they were 85% conversion rate kind of process. And then when we actually got the numbers, they were 50%, sub 50%, right? So they weren't, their gut wasn't off just by a little bit. It was off by a lot, right? And then not realizing that some of the leakage in leads that they had in the process. The owner was focused on the leads he was more personally involved with, not necessarily the ones that also went to the breadth of the team.
Yeah, amazing. So why would a business owner not go to an accountant? Why would they go to a business coach instead of an accountant? And obviously both work hand in hand, but naturally we've got we think that, when it comes to numbers and financials in our business, that we would go to an accountant. Why would they go to a business coach?
A business coach is the one that accountants are a great value to a business owner. But they tend, and this is not a knock, but because it's their focus, they tend to be about making sure getting the numbers right. And then here, particularly in the U.S., a lot of accounting firms then also will do the tax processing and the tax component for the business owner, right, which is something they have to do. But it doesn't mean necessarily that the accounting expert is the one who's going to, challenge them on the strategies, how they're thinking about the business, and really movement forward, right? And especially across a broad swath of topics, right? So an accountant is challenge them about their overall profitability, but really getting into the other factors that really drive that accountability. Their sales process, the effectiveness of their marketing, their team, obviously the time around the owner, all those components that we as business owners bring, not only the education, the insights, but the accountability to make the changes in the business. It's different. They go hand in hand. I've made many referrals to accountants and bookkeepers for clients because they needed that kind of support, and I know I'll continue well. So they're complementary, but they both play a key role for the business, especially a business, again, that wants to scale long term to some type of exit, because you need to have, really sound accounting practices and books for a potential buyer someday.
And so what you're doing with clients is also on a weekly or, bi-monthly, you're actually really drilling down into numbers, more specific, measurable, and then often daily, in some cases, depending on, the business. But it's that more regular check-in around having their finger on the pulse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Thank you. That's been amazing. I mean, I think it's such a powerful message for business owners to think bigger outside of the current kind of situation and think about what's next. We have to, it's that key to sort of looking back, what can we learn from where we've come, where are we now, and then, what do we want for the future? And like I said at the beginning, sometimes that can be out of our hands. We want to kind of take control of that now so that we can have that amazing exit of our dreams. So thank you for the wisdom and the sharing there, Todd.
No, thank you for having me. I've loved the conversation.
So just 3 questions I'd love to wrap up with. Best book that you've ever read?
I'm going to share 2. Good to Great by Jim Collins. And so the whole principle around a hedgehog, and also just a study around, actually more effective leaders that tend to be humble. All right. And driving that home. So that's a book I read a long time ago that still resonates. But the book I've given the most to my clients is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Because that, those simple changes, those regular habits that you build, everybody has time challenges, everybody. And that's often the key to really getting the business owner to drive change is you got to free them up and make them more disciplined, more effective with their time.
Best mentor or coach that you've had throughout your career?
Yeah. I was very blessed in my corporate career. A gentleman named Glenn Marino. I learned so much about how to build a team, how to continue to grow a team, how to build a team with complementary skills, right? Almost like a team of rivals, but that were complementary to one another. And then also you knew he believed in you, but yet he still challenged you. So that's someone who's I will always carry with me. And then also during my Actioncoach tenure, a name you're probably very familiar with, Bruce Wilson. He's my coach, and I'm part of a group with him. Very much, I didn't know how much mindset work I needed to do until I interacted with Bruce. We'll continue to do so. Just how much some of our own beliefs can hold us back.
I love, one of the many things I love about, our community is that we are committed to our own growth and learning. So Congratulations on that. And one last question, best piece of advice that you ever received?
The best piece of advice, it goes back a couple decades ago now. I was leaving a meeting with a colleague. The meeting had not gone very well. It was a tumultuous topic. Everyone was frustrated, and we left. And I made a comment to a colleague, like, that was an awful meeting. And he just stopped, turned to me, and said, "Todd, why are you being so damn negative?" And it caught track. And then it made me realize, that was probably something I was carrying way beyond that one meeting, right? And it was awareness around my own presence, how I was holding space, and the impact it had on others. So it's something, just a leadership value that I still have to coach myself on and watch myself on, that carry through all my interactions to try to be that, find the opportunity, right? Find the positive, rally around that, and move forward.
Love that advice. What a great way to wrap up our episode. Todd Rodden, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Michelle, thank you so much. It's great to join in. Look forward to talking again in the future.
Michelle Adams, your host here. Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.